Hi there, it's Dan here, and today we're going to be talking about Albion, The Last Companion by Patrick McCormack. So this is the first book in the Albion series. It was originally supposed to be a trilogy, but only the first two books actually got published. I'm not sure of the reasons for that, but you can download the third book as online as a PDF, I think. So if I can find the link for that, I'll put it in the description. But this book is historical fantasy based around the legends of King Arthur and sort of really heavily influenced by Celtic mythology, so taking that angle on it. The story begins 10 years after the death of King Arthur, so it's kind of like the following generation, and it takes place in the Porthile estuary, or near the Porthile estuary, at this holy sanctuary for the most part, which is in the region of Dumnonia in the book, which sort of roughly correlates to modern day Devon. And all of a sudden, this out-of-the-way little place becomes like a centre of loads of action as a bunch of different factions all converge on it for various reasons. We follow Gain, who is a young girl whose village in the Porthile estuary is wiped out by raiders. And then there's Nay and Gorthin, who are two Dumnonian warriors who have been sent to investigate this raid. We've got Cholric, who is a young Saxon boy, Saxon, same thing, boy, who sort of gets stranded in this estuary after his father and all the other guys he was with, they were going to establish a new kingdom, but they got taken out by these raiders as well. He's the only survivor of that. And we also follow Budok, who is a mysterious old hermit who takes care of the sanctuary, and his sort of mysterious past is gradually revealed to us throughout the novel. So these five main characters have to sort of band together to fight the raiders, who are led by this villainous pirate guy, Eramon, who also has a bit of a past with Nay and Gorthin. And interwoven between all of this is McCormack's retellings of parts of the legend of King Arthur, with that heavy Celtic mythology influence, and mostly these are told, through the voice of the characters in the story. Now, I'm a big fan of the legends of King Arthur, and I find the period of history that gave birth to that whole mythology to be really fascinating. So that kind of makes me a pretty harsh critic of any books about it, because if they do a bad job of it, then they've tainted something that I really enjoy. You know what I mean? But this book does not disappoint. I really enjoyed it, and I'm definitely going to be picking up the second book in the series. McCormack does a really good job of establishing and maintaining the tone. You get the sense that the plot is taking place in a country that is in like terminal decline after the death of Arthur. Yeah, so with his death, it's like a golden age has passed, and everyone's like a shadow of the great heroes who lived before. At one point he says, hold on, I've got it here. He says, all that remained were lesser mortals living in the ruin of Prydain, which is the old word for Britain. But yeah, you get the idea. You've got these stories that some of the other characters are telling about Arthur, and the scope of them kind of makes the current problems that the characters are having seem almost insignificant. But McCormack doesn't lose sight of the fact that for the people who are actually involved there and then in the problems, they're hugely significant, to the point of life and death. He also does a real good job of pacing the revelations that he sort of gives you about the characters. Like often he'll give you, just enough so you can kind of work out what's coming just before it happens. But that builds up a good level of interest and investment for the reader. I mean, the main characters in general have a lot of depth, and there are a couple of nice character arcs. I particularly liked Gaines' development through it, like the young girl whose village is wiped out. So at the start, she's, basically like a scared child, but by the end of it, she's a really determined young woman who's gaining the respect of the rest of the group without pandering to him in any way. In fact, in general, watching this group of strangers sort of band together and form a really tight bond, it felt really organic throughout the book, and by the end you're really rooting for them. McCormack deals with themes of acceptance throughout the book. Budok's attitude to religion is just like one quite nice example out of a load of examples of this. He's nominally Christian, but he's like totally accepting of other people's views, and often he'll just translate his views into something that their worldview can accept without forcing it down their throat. I thought in the descriptive sections, McCormack's prose and his writing style was really good. There were one or two occasions where the dialogue felt a bit stilted, but not all the time. There's just a couple of times there. But if that's the only criticism that I'm coming up with, then that speaks for itself, really, doesn't it? So yeah, The Last Companion by Patrick McCormack. If you like anything to do with Arthuriana or Celtic mythology, then I reckon you'll be into this. If you have read this and you want something similar, then you could try, there you go, The King Making by Helen Hollick. That's like the first book in a trilogy about King Arthur. It's called Pendragon's Banner trilogy. That's another one in a similar style, which was very enjoyable. There's also Taliesin by Stephen Lawhead, which has still got a price on, and that was £1.25. What a bargain. That's book one of the Pendragon cycle. That's really heavily influenced by the Celtic mythology, so if that's where you're coming from, then this is probably the best sort of King Arthur retelling for someone who's into Celtic mythology. He also does, Stephen Lawhead that is, another one about Robin Hood. This is the first book in the King Raven trilogy, which is a similar style to this McCormack book, but just telling the Robin Hood legend instead. And I'm just as much a fan of Robin Hood as I am of King Arthur. So yeah, hopefully that was useful, and bye, I suppose.